Hello there. I got a comment this week asking a question that I think we all are going to deal with in our lives, perhaps multiple times, but it had to do with how do you deal with a relationship in your life, a significant relationship, where you are trying to regain someone's trust in a way, where specifically this commenter was dealing with his or her, I'm just going to say his for ease of language, his mother. And we all deal with this with our parents, where we might have been a bit bratty as children, we were maybe sullen teenagers, and now as adults we've gone through some changes, but now our our parents don't really recognize them and think that we're the same person that we were when we were 10 or 15. And this can go for many other relationships too, friends, perhaps significant others. If you have some kind of change where you're really working on yourself and you're improving, it's difficult, I think, for people to really accept a change for the better in someone else. It's easy to accept a change for the worse, I think. If someone betrays you, it's easy to say, oh, I used to think that person was good, now I think they're bad. But when it's the other way around, not even that you were bad before, but so-and-so, he's a little bit, immature, he's childish, selfish. It can be difficult to restore people's opinion of you, especially if they've known you for a long time. So what do? Especially if it's a more important relationship and you've maybe done some damaging things in the past. Maybe it's not even childhood. Maybe it's just, a couple years ago you were kind of a jerk and now you've turned your ways around, but you've hurt a lot of people. How do you make that transition apparent to other people so that they can accept you for who you are now? This new, improved, reformed version of yourself. Well, first of all, who you are, who you think you are, is really shaped by everyone around you. From the time that you were born, people have been telling you who you are. And so your identity, the foundation of it, is not something that you came up with. And it's not something that is objective. It's not something that you found objectively. It's something that you were told by other people. Mostly your parents, if they were your primary caregivers, but also your siblings, your friends, other relatives in your extended family. So the foundation of your identity was given to you by other people. Of course, as you get older, you're able to kind of weigh what's true, what's not true, to kind of ask for yourself who you are, but you can't really get around the initial bricks that were laid in your childhood. So that is to say, if you were dealing with significant relationships that were around back then, if you're dealing with the very people, such as your parents, who helped create your identity for you, that's an extra roadblock. So just accept that to begin with, that they helped give you this identity that you are now trying to grow out of. So it's going to be very difficult for them to alter it. Less so for other people, but in a way, even if it was a friend that you've only known for a few years, in some ways they have also told you who they see you as, and maybe they haven't laid a foundation for your identity, but they have given you a little bit of direction about who you are. And so it can be difficult for them to let go of those things as well. Now, this is an obvious thing, an obvious point I'm about to make, but I'll make it anyway, that people's view of you they're not actually seeing you. No one ever sees the real you. Only you see the real you. The real whatever that is. What people see is your external manifestation of that, your behavior, your words, and your actions. So it doesn't really matter who you say you are or who you think you are on the inside. All that matters is your behavior to other people. And this can be proved by if you've ever had two groups of friends who don't ever cross, and you were filling one role in one, you had a certain identity in one, and in another group you had a different identity. In one group you were talkative in the life of the party, and in the other group you were the cool standoffish one who rarely spoke. So you might think, oh, I know the real me. It's a mixture of those two. But to those people in the one group, all your identity is just what they see. And it's a different thing for the other group. So who is the real you? Both are the real you, even if they're contradictory. And if you try to convince one group after they've gotten to know one side of the real you that you're actually the other side, you try to convince the people who think of you as being a loudmouth that actually you're quiet, or the other way around, they're going to have a very difficult time accepting that once they've gotten to know you in that way as that person. People don't like shifting roles around. When you get in a group of people, everyone kind of assumes a role, and people don't like it when those roles get shifted around. When someone tries to move from one place, like the quiet guy, to all of a sudden being the loud guy. Do you see what I mean? And so there's just a natural resistance, even if it's the real you, even if other people would say, oh yeah, he's quiet. If this group doesn't think you're quiet, to them, they're going to resist that part of you if they've already established you in some other way. So, in this specific question that the commenter left, in dealing with your parents, they got to know you as a baby. And so that's a difficult role to break out of. Even if they see you now as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, there's still part of them that has pegged you as the child. The first thing to do with any of these relationships, parents, friends, whatever, is to just accept it. Accept that you cannot change the way that they look at you. You just can't. You can't get in their mind. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter how different you act, you cannot force the change in their mind. And then related to that, you also just need to realize that nobody is ever going to see the real you on the inside. So as much as you want them to, and maybe this is starting to sound a little depressing, but I don't think it's that depressing. You can express yourself enough that maybe people can start to get to that. But ultimately, what you see as the real you, no one else is ever going to be able to see in that way, because it's you looking at yourself. No one else is going to see that. So just realize that. Then another thing to do is to ask yourself, have you really changed? Especially if you realize that you made mistakes in the past, your behavior was not right, and now you're trying to change that. Ask yourself the question, be tough on yourself. Have you really changed? Or are you kind of the same person who just thinks you've changed? Because again, they can't see your mind where you think you've changed. All they see is your your actions. And sometimes it can be difficult to see our own actions. Even though we're here doing them, it's difficult sometimes to realize what we're actually doing. So ask yourself, have I really changed? Or have I changed as significantly as I think I've changed? And so maybe you have really changed, but people are still treating you like you're your old self. What you need to then do is bring consciousness to repeating patterns. Because when we have known someone for a while, we begin to, instead of having actual interactions, we sort of just play out patterns over and over, patterns of behavior. And it's easy to slip back into those things. So, in a way, even though we can go all week being this new, improved version of ourselves, as soon as we see someone that we've known for a long time, we just get sucked into the gravity of that role that we've always played and of those patterns that have been there for years. So bring awareness to that in the specific relationship. What are the patterns that play out? And sometimes it's very difficult to break free of those because it'll be like, as an example, sometimes you will, let's say you used to have a bad temper and now you're basically over it and you're more calm. But then when you're around someone who knew you when you had a bad temper, they might start to just say to you while you're being calm, they might just say to you, "Hey man, why are you getting so mad?" In a discussion or something like that. And that'll provoke you. Like that'll start to get you mad. It's like, I wasn't mad before, but you're just assuming. People are always trying to see ahead. When you develop these patterns, people are not really looking at actually what's happening. They're trying to look one step ahead and they're like, well, this person always gets riled up and angry after a while. So I'm just going to jump ahead. Oh man, why are you getting angry? Don't get angry. Or maybe they'll jump to that. Maybe they won't accuse you of being angry, but they'll say, don't do this thing that you always do. And that can trip you up and that can make you do that thing. So just be aware of those patterns so that they don't surprise you. The important thing to do ultimately is to approach these relationships in a spirit of unconditional love, being that you release any kind of control that you're trying to have on someone else. And if you are acting in a truly reformed way, in an improved way, or maybe even just a different way, it's not necessarily better than before, and people don't recognize that, people don't see it, they don't believe it, they still think you're the same old, you need to be prepared to just let go of that and be like, okay, that's what they see. I can't control it. There's nothing I can do. And I'm just still gonna try to be here in this relationship. And I mean, if it's your parents, that's one that you might want to hold on to. So, or lots of different friendships that they're not worth giving up on just because the other person is resistant maybe to a change you're trying to make. Just let go of trying to change them and go from there. Because when you start to fight their perception of you, if you're trying to fight with them over who you are, you're playing right back into that first thing, which is other people defining who you are and shaping your identity and telling you who you are. You see, it's very different if someone says you are this person and you're like, well, to yourself, you're like, I'm not, but I can't control how you feel, so I'm going to let go of it. That's very different than someone saying, you are this way, and you're like, no, I'm not. I need to prove that I'm not. I need to change your mind. That's playing into it. Their definition. If they perceive you wrongly, that's not your problem. That's their problem. They are the ones who are wrong, so just let go of it. Over a long period of time, unfortunately, I think this is the only way. It will take a long time. They may begin to accept the new you, the reformed you, the improved you, the different you. Just over a long period of time, if you show with consistency through your actions, through your outward behavior, that you really aren't who they thought you were, and that you are this new version of yourself. But it will take some time. It's not something that will happen right away. It won't happen as fast as you want it to. And really, people are good at picking up on, even if they're not consciously aware, even if they can't put their finger on what it is. I think people are pretty naturally good at picking up on someone who they think they are, who they say they are, doesn't line up with who they're coming across as. People are good at picking up on that dissonance within other people. You know, we might call that person fake or unconscious or something. Or maybe not even be able to put a word on it, but I think people in general are pretty good at picking up on that dissonance in other people. So the best thing to try to do, rather than try to go out and convince other people that you are who you say you are, the better thing to do is to just make sure that you are in alignment, right? That who you think of yourself as being is actually in alignment with what you are doing and what you are saying, that there isn't any disconnect, there's no dissonance, there's no conflict. It's all going in one direction. And so then that'll be the way to convince other people, though convincing other people isn't what your goal should be. But when they can see that you are totally in alignment over time, then they will be more likely to accept the new identity. So align your inner and outer worlds, and don't take anything for granted. Don't just assume things about yourself or assume you are a certain way, because maybe you aren't. Either maybe someone told you that, or maybe you just want to think that about yourself. Maybe you think you behave in a certain way, but you don't. Don't take anything for granted. Take a good look at yourself to make sure everything is in alignment the way you want it. And then, once you've taken care of yourself, others will follow. Those relationships will either naturally heal because they are part of that alignment, part of being true to yourself, to use an overused phrase, or they might naturally just fall away because it's just not working anymore. You know, I don't say that last thing to discourage anyone, because, and I think with family, depending on what, how radically you're changing yourself, but based on this particular comment, it seems like the commenter just, made some mistakes in the past and now is trying to be a better person. In that case, if you are just committed to that, to this improvement of yourself, and you are getting yourself into alignment, then I think that naturally those relationships will heal. And I'm with you. I'm with you there, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell button to be notified of all new posts. And until next time, stay cool and attractive.